the interest of a strong TV channel, of course, gives a lot of trust to investors, and that helps with the raise strategy. So the fact that we have a big TV player, for example, saying we are interested, joining the round, putting X amount of money in advertisement, that gives trust to cash investors. And it's also the ability to say, well, now we have a very important content towards building a household name. Like we know that for a travel company, trust is so important, right? And with this here, we can basically unlock a bit of that, how to create trust with consumers part, which is very important for investors. It's of course always a concern to them.
In this episode, I caught up with André, CEO and co-founder of Tryp, a super travel platform that makes multi-destination bookings easy. André is one of the 8 founders who participated in the Media for Growth fundraising program in 2023, and we had a great time advising them on the latest fundraise. This is a free program for early-stage founders to raise capital solutions to fund marketing cost. We talked about how their media and fundraising strategy has evolved since they left the program, how Tryp is planning to capture market share from established players using clever advertising, and what's next for them. So basically, André, what you're doing with Tryp, you're simplifying the process of multi-destination booking, making it so much easier for people to book a trip and find places to go. But I also actually haven't thought about the fact that you are discovering new places. I think you're right. My example and my experience was that I was coming into that search, knowing where I'm going. But you're also basically helping people just uncover destinations or places they haven't thought about, which is really interesting. So I think it's also almost like, is it correct to probably refer to Tryp as a super app, like a platform where you have buses and trains and accommodations and places to see all in one from all around the world?
Yeah, and one layer that we have been currently talking about is that we as consumers, we have been consuming like a lot of media now, and a lot of our time is spent digesting things that are catered by an AI. So I know you're in YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Everything that we are seeing is created to us, or not created. It's catered to us by an AI system. So it's computers are deciding what I see, basically, which is kind of creepy. But it filters a lot, like what from the sale possibilities. And this is, I think, something that when we look into travel, still not that case. Like we have no company besides Tryp.com actually catering things for users. And I think this is part of the big vision, is to be able to say, well, Diana, we already know some things about you. We already know where you have been. So when you come to Tryp.com, we can really cater the trips for you as a consumer. And I think this plays into a really big vision of being able to do much better in terms of recommendations, in terms of building the itineraries, selecting the time slots, all of these things for travelers.
So you, André, and you and your team, you're based in Denmark. I mean, you're still serving trips all around Europe. We're here in London. You're exploring entering the market. How easy or challenging is to actually adapt Tryp to a specific market and make that the product changes in a way to cater to a new audience?
When we created the product, we decided that we want to start from the whole world, actually, have full coverage, because we need to support any location, not only as a starting location, but as a potential place where to go. So that was built into the platform itself. Now, of course, consumers in the UK will have different tastes to American consumer. That's embedded also into the platform, is saying, for example, for British consumers, you can observe certain patterns that travelers will prefer to go to certain regions, generally speaking. So that is also embedded in the system. Of course, like for the US, for example, we have much less tuning of the system because we have less users than what we'll have actually in the UK, which actually is one of our strongest markets currently. So the more users, the better the recommendations from your starting point. But the capability needs to be there. We need to be able to create good things for you. Doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Let's actually talk a bit about your growth strategy and how you acquire customers, because you gain mass user adoption through activation channels, Facebook, Instagram. We were just chatting about this before we started the interview. I think multiple of your videos went viral. There's one in Germany, I think, when you started in Germany last year. I think in a matter of a month, reached about 2 million people. I don't know how many followers you have now on TikTok and Instagram combined.
It's 150.
Okay, right. So you basically started with the activation channels, as most companies do. And I think in a matter of like 12 months, your acquisition costs dropped by more than 80%.
Important, yeah. So we started as a company doing a lot of pay-per-click, a strong presence on Meta. It became, in the first months, quite expensive to acquire customers. So we were spending around 300 euros to acquire one customer. It was not profitable at all. Then we started also navigating into TikTok organic content that really reduced the customer acquisition cost. But also there is this effect of you need some investment initially. Yeah. We need to create that awareness, that trust content, and then the customer acquisition costs will naturally go down. And now it's set around 20 something euros. So it's
300 euros to 20 euros in a matter of 12 months. Yeah. Were there any specific practices that you felt like worked really well for Tryp? I know you're using a lot of influencer marketing in your videos.
Well, I think the first thing was like, don't put the foot on the gas when you don't understand what consumers are going through. So we had this idea, okay, we are going to put the foot on the gas, the platform is great, it's going to sell, the customer acquisition cost is going to go down quickly. And it went down quickly, but not as quickly as we wanted it to be. Yeah. So it just make sure that when your customers on your page using the product, if you are spending an instant advertisement budget, that you really understand what people are going through. And there's so many platforms out there where you can actually see what people are doing on your website, monitor their behavior, and really take the time to fine-tune the suggestions and all of this. And this has been an ongoing process. Understand barriers and tackle them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything that you can do organic, which is free in a way, besides the hours that you spend to build that content, it really helps. It reduces the CAC cost so greatly.
I mean, you're arguably operating in a very competitive market with the likes of Booking and Expedia and Airbnb and so many others. To what extent have you actually studied their strategy, their growth strategy when you started advertising Tryp? And this company is spending millions on SEO. Is that something that you're considering? Do you think that you could potentially go against them and win the SEO war, or you're looking at growth and advertising from a slightly different angle?
Yeah, I think you look into, for example, Kayak, Booking, Expedia, and they're products of their time. Like they had a very strong focus initially on SEO. They did very well. People were searching on Google, so it was the right product in a sense at the right time, right strategy. Nowadays, we also need to ask ourselves, who are the travelers, our best travelers? And maybe it's not the users that will be searching for a specific keyword. We actually want to do well on this space, but it's not our primary method of reaching out to users. Because if you're a user that is saying, I want to go to Rome, for example, and searching to Rome in Google, then that's maybe a user that is not as interesting for us as a user that says, I want to go to anywhere. That being said, of course, if we have more than 7,000 locations all around the world that we can create trips from and to, we should indeed be good at that game. And if you are searching for trips from, and you live in a small place, for example, trips from Odense in Denmark, for example, then we should be playing strong on that game. And it's something that we are constantly working on and improving and using technology to automatically create content from those locations and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's also with platforms like Booking and the ones you referenced, they have indeed spent 40-60% of their revenue on search. I think it's also arguably, is that a good strategy? Because you look at what Google is doing with Google Flights and accommodation, basically is becoming a platform for them to distribute, but also a direct competitor, to their business model. And in terms of where you see basically Tryp going in the next few months or next few years, you raise an interesting point. Who is the traveler? Like, who is actually the audience? Who are the people using Tryp right now?
So it's a lot of young travelers. So 50% of our sales are Gen Z, so 24 years and below, very young audience. They want things done quickly, They don't want the Excel plan trips. They want them at the tip of their fingers. And they're very connected on TikTok, Instagram. They're always seeking inspiration. So a lot of our typical customer journeys will be someone seeing us on TikTok, for example, being curious about the platform, then navigating, getting a good trip, maybe getting some advertisement then, or retargeting, and then ending the trip. These trips, some of them are multi-city trips. We also have package holiday that is just one city, visiting one city. It has been everything basically to the mixture, but very focused in Europe. So
Yeah.
within Europe, to Europe.
You mentioned pricing just now, and I know simplicity and ease of booking is something that really basically makes Tryp stand out in the space, but pricing is also a very interesting USP of the company. Is it fair to assume that almost any destination is 25-30% cheaper than if you were to go on Booking or other platforms? And why so?
Yep. So margins in traveling are very slim. So we indeed have 20% or 20% cheaper than competitors. That be trips, generally speaking, with accommodation, because we can access specific deals on the hotel side that you couldn't, as a consumer, access in platforms like Booking.com. For flights, the margins are very slim, and we are not putting basically any margins on the single city trips with the flights, because it's a fierce war. But indeed, yeah, for a package holiday, we can beat especially the traditional players that are doing the static package holiday by 20%, sometimes even 25%.
And do you always have partnerships with travel agencies or the destinations that people are going to, or you're using other form of technology basically to get access to those destination options?
So for the flight component, you can, it's something that I would like to go too much into that, but you can rely on companies that have robots that give you data from airlines, for example, that are difficult to access, like Ryanair.
Yes.
But we shouldn't be talking too much about this, because it's such a headache. In the courts, you may have seen Ryanair sues this, and then another airline sues that person. I think airlines have been very conservative with giving access to data, which doesn't make much sense to me, because we are selling their flights.
It's also the pricing strategy, isn't it? Because it's almost like programmatic advertising.
Yeah.
You're sitting next to someone that probably paid £50 and you paid £250, right? So it's probably also the nature of bookings. But you do have partnerships with other airlines, or is that something that you're exploring?
Yep. So we have close partnerships with basically the ticket distributors.
Yeah.
One very strong partnership that we have is with Flixbus. So they are such a big player for us. Then we have other types of partnerships with actually tourism organizations as well. So Tourism of Germany, I think, is a great example. You may have seen, if you went to Tryp.com in last months, you saw a lot of Germany cities. And so it's about basically empowering locations, and many times smaller locations, to be out there and shown to the world, which I think is quite useful, especially for Germany. They have smaller cities. They want them to be out there, people to get them, to get to know them, and they're shown in Tryp.com naturally.
Yeah. So I think up to last year when we met, André, you've basically been using successfully all these activation channels to get Tryp out there. I mean, there's been more than 1 million people use the platform, per se, 1.7 million people. When you joined the program last year, the Growth Fundraising Program, what were you looking for? How did you come across it? And what were your expectations, I suppose?
Yeah. So I think it's crazy that you as a startup, you put so much work towards raising capital from investors, and then I don't know the statistics for the average startup behavior, but 50% of it goes to Meta. Yeah. And it goes into a relationship, which is just a client-provider relationship. Like, I don't have any close interests, or Meta doesn't have any close interest in our success. So you're spending this cash that was spent already gained through equity, and then you are spending it with someone where you don't have any kind of relationship. Like, you're just a customer to them. Yeah, and the fact that you can work with a big media player and you actually have that relationship, and you are not spending your cash directly. Yeah, I think it's just 2 wins, right?
Yeah, you have a much more, I guess, close relationship. So you're basically, what you're saying is that you reached a point with Tryp where you're propping up your marketing budgets, is increasing. You obviously understand that you're probably looking more into brand building right now, since you've got your user base, the mass adoption. And as any other company in the last 12 months, 18 months or so, actually probably coming up to 2 years, it's been rather challenging to raise money. And why should you fundraise when it's taking so much longer? 80% of that round would go straight out to an advertising, either platform like Meta, or it could be even other traditional channels. And therefore, a capital solution like Media for the Order program, connecting with different broadcasters, would give you the ability to preserve cash, but also to have that relationship with them where it just goes beyond a simple transaction.
Because like Meta, they will want our cash, of course.
Yeah.
With a big TV player, for example, they want our success because they are not necessarily being paid in cash; they are being paid in equity. So I think we are always going to get a better advisory level in a sense, and much more nurturing as a brand than just give us your cash and we'll be happy with that.
To what extent were you aware of any above the line media like TV, or have you explored those channels before entering the program?
No, actually we have this preconception that TV would be incredibly expensive, right? That we wouldn't be able to touch it. And it was thanks to you and the Media for Growth program that we actually understood, well, this is something that we can be in instead of in 5 years to come, 10 years to come, we can be now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we had, I remember the workshop we run with ThinkBox, and this is actually a study they're also updating right now, but predominantly, I think on average in 2022, an online business, a digital business would have spent about £50,000 on TV, which is actually not a significant amount. But it's also, I think, that expertise that is required sometimes in terms of how do you think about structuring marketing budgets, a media plan, creatives, and so on. Has your view on fundraising, or I guess your fundraising strategy, has that changed since you left the program? And if so, how?
Yep. But I think the interest of a strong TV channel, of course, gives a lot of trust to investors, and that helps with the raise strategy. So the fact that we have a big TV player, for example, saying we are interested, joining the round, putting X amount of money in advertisement, that gives trust to cash investors.
Yeah.
And it's also the ability to say, well, now we have a very important component towards building a household name. Like we know that for a travel company, trust is so important, right? And with this here, we can basically unlock a bit of that, how to create trust with consumers part, which is very important for investors. It's of course always a concern to them. How can we, as a brand, be a household name?
Yeah.
Without breaking budget.
Yeah. And you're also exploring this particular venture model in the UK with broadcasters, but also in other markets like Germany. Is that something that you were thinking about when you joined the program? The ability, I guess, to enter new markets using an approach like Media Capital to de-risk, I guess, the chances of failure having media partner alongside you.
But to be clear, we already have a strong German component, which is one of our strongest markets together with the UK. But I would have no clue how to basically go into German TV. Like we are kind of outsiders in that, right? Yeah. So having this big players saying, well, maybe we can help you with this, maybe we can work together. It brings a lot of clarity to what can we do, how we can do it.
Yeah. So what's next for Tryp? Do you expect to see the brand on TV in the next 12 months or so? I personally do. But you've had an absolutely fantastic growth in the last 12 months. I mean, we just discussed some of the KPIs, but even the traffic that you get in the website, your metrics are getting better and better. You know, you're about to close your round. What's next? What's the next milestone for Tryp?
But there are three things that we need to do very, very well, always as a platform, and keep improving. The first one is really good recommendations, touching into what I mentioned about knowing who are our customers, being really sharp with the suggestions. So there will be a lot of exciting things happening on that area. The second thing is being really sharp with advertisement. Like we are going from TikTok, being very popular there with a young audience, now being with this attention, being a household name, right? So being on TV, just bigger marketing spending, like bigger everything, basically.
Yeah.
And the third component is retention. So it's about rewarding users that come back, that stay in our ecosystem. So this will be three areas that where a lot of exciting things will be happening, technology-wise, marketing-wise, ecosystem-wise.
Yeah. And I guess just in terms of your growth strategy, probably just to be clear for anyone listening as well, you're not looking necessarily to like stop the tap on digital channels. I think, in fact, probably starting using TV or other forms of media would basically impact as well your presence on social media. But even, I mean, your customer acquisition costs dropping by 80%. I don't know how further down you can get them to, but essentially can become even cheaper to acquire customers. And you create that just nice kind of omni-channel journey.
Yep.
Getting youngsters to probably then targeting them with SVOD, getting some of the TV audiences back to your website, conversions and looking at Tryp. It's basically getting a lot of awareness, as you said, and cementing that brand in the market.
Yeah, it's like we have been betting heavily on understanding what Tryps are likely to interest consumers, creating first a huge level of awareness, then being very sharp on the retargeting consumers that they visited the platform with the Tryps that are likely to interest them. So it's never a one-channel strategy.
Yeah.
We'll always in multiple channels. It's a complicated strategy, but it's a strategy where the potential is limitless, because you can say, now I'm partnering with a TV channel in Germany. We think that our algorithm, or we can see that our algorithm is quite tuned for this country, for example. Let's create that awareness and let's then do the automatic retargeting Tryps that are likely to convert with consumers, and be very sharp on how we basically showcase or re-showcase to consumers the Tryp.com product.
Yeah. André, it's been a pleasure working with you for the last few months and having me in the program. I personally learned a lot from you and from just seeing the journey you had. And it's been a learning curve as well for us, actually looking into the different markets, because video consumption trends vary a lot country by country. And I'm sure you've had discussions with broadcasters. And I'm really excited about the next step and seeing the TV ad in the UK and hopefully Germany very soon as well.
Thank you, Anna. The product was wonderful. We learned so much from the Media for Growth program, and you pushed us in part to be where we are with all our media dealings and all of them. You opened doors. So really thankful for that.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. You can find the full video episode on YouTube on the Media for Growth channel, or you can listen to it on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcast. And let us know what you think by leaving a review. The full script and more investment insights are available via our Media for Growth monthly newsletter. See you next time.